Yo, so to get started, I'm setting up the station. You know what it is. You don't need to get painting on your furniture. Your mom, your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, depending on who you are, they're going to be pissed, and you don't want them to be pissed off at you. So after that, you pour out your colors, you mix up some colors, you add your matte medium, and you get freaking started, yo. Using the matte medium, first of all, because that's going to help me use that paint a lot longer. And trust me, I need to use this paint over a couple days and not have that shit drying out like the Sahara Desert. You feel me? So I'm using that matte medium. Anywho, you know what the deal is. Name of the game, first step, coverage. Pick your base color, pick your mid-tone. I would say mid-tone, don't go light, don't go too dark. Take your mid-tone, cover that shit. This is a flower, so I'm doing the outside petals first. Really just because they take up the most space. And I felt like, hey, I'm trying to tackle the most coverage as possible just to get started. So I went with the mid-tone. I'm going for, like, at this point, I was thinking like more on the reddish side of pink, but somehow ended up in this orange territory, in this kind of Sahara orange, tannish, peach area, whatever you would call it. But hey, this is art. We don't make rules. We just make art. So right here, putting in my dark tones, man. Anywhere your shadows would be, and typically with a flower, the farther away from the bud, the darker the petal. And then also at the bottom of the petal, that's where your shadow is going to be. I don't really know how to blend acrylics. This is my first big acrylic painting. So right here, I'm just putting in my dark tones, trying to blend them as well as I can, mostly with a dry brush. I'm putting in those dark tones kind of by themselves on top of the mid-tone and hoping that matte medium does it justice enough to where I can use that paint and it's not super dry to where I can kind of brush them into each other seamlessly. Something I've learned over the last few days is the painting will look super fresh, obviously, when you lay it down, but give it some time and those blends actually smooth out. So yeah, what you see me doing here is just filling in the other side of the petal. I want the other side to pop, but not too much. So I went with this kind of like sandy color. What you can see me doing now is changing my mind and being like, yo, that's not bright enough. I need to blend in a brighter yellow. So that's what we're doing, putting in more yellows. And I'm relying on that matte medium again to keep our paint usable enough, not too dry to where I can blend into each other without them just completely being a disaster and laying on top of each other. And so far, without the time lapse, you would see that it's kind of a disaster. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know acrylics to save my life. But it's worth trying. It was fun. And to be honest, that matte medium went a long way because at first with the darker tone, I let the base coat dry and then put in the darker tone and then kind of had to go in with the brighter tone, and it was a mess. With this one, I went straight from a darker tone to a lighter tone immediately, no time to dry, just go. And it seemed to blend a little bit better. So right here, you got the bud, you got the core of the flower. I'm pretty sure at this point this is a lotus. Started out thinking this was a peony. This is definitely a lotus. So, this is the next day, fam. I got the smoothie, and I got a different perspective. I walked in, I saw it in the light, and I was like, man, this thing is dark, and it is not popping off the way it should be, you know? So I'm like, let's go pink. Let's go way brighter pink. Almost Barbie pink. You feel me? Because across the room, I want this thing to sang to you. So like I said, we got the matte medium. I'm using the same palette as the day before. I got the Stay Wet palette. It's on Amazon. You can go buy up that shit if you want to. It's there. I'm using golden acrylic, using matte medium. And like I said before, putting in those dark tones, immediately using my light tones and kind of using a dry brush, not really a lot of paint on top of it, to blend those tones. And I found that worked a lot better. Now what I needed to do here is bring out a much brighter yellow, because the contrast was just, it was so flat. It was flatter than the interstate to Arkansas, if you feel me. If you've ever been there, it gets flat, a lot of corn. It's kind of boring. Beautiful state though. So yeah, I'm like, yo, we need to kung-pao this thing across the room. You feel me? No offense to anybody if you take offense to that. So we got the bright yellow. I'm throwing as bright yellow as possible because I need it bright near the center. And so after the yellow, after the pink, I'm working on this middle again. And you can see I'm definitely playing with it multiple times. I haven't made up my mind, but I'm working with it. Now we're getting to the blue. This is the part that I wanted to pop the most. And before anybody gets on my case, I get it. This is much more of like a turquoise, emerald green, and I fucks with you. I feel you. It is. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. These little finger furry things popping out from the flower. I couldn't wait to get to this part because I wanted this to be the pop. I wanted this to be, if you walked in and saw this thing 20 feet away, you're going to want to come closer and check it out. You're going to want to breathe on it. You're going to want to smell it. This isn't a scratch and sniff. This is a painting. So, we're back to the core. I thought that was pretty cool. This is the next day, obviously. But I'm going to talk about that core a little bit. I was able to paint over that and still see like the little holy guys. And that way I was able to layer a couple paintings on top of that. That way it stayed that honeycomb color. And I could still see those circles. And I thought, hey, this is going to work because I'm going to keep going over it with a deeper brown and just play with this stuff. I'm really going to mold this stuff like it's clay. Totally not clay, but you get what I'm saying. Flip it upside down. If you're ever painting, flip your painting upside down and see what happens. Some interesting stuff can happen if you just turn your drawing a different way and kind of see it from a different perspective, because I would never paint the same way right side up, you know. But here I am reworking these holes, reworking this center to make sure that the contrast is on point, because it really needs to be. And so here I'm working on the blue furries again, but now we're putting in the individuals. We're making them singular, you feel me? Because up until this point we blocked everything in. We blocked it all in. Now we need the furries to stand out. So I'm using the lightest blue turquoise tone I can use, which really, if you look at my palette in the bottom left hand corner, I poured like a rich turquoise on top of that yellow because I honestly am so messy and I had no space in my palette. And it was kind of getting yellow, but that's going to work for us because it's going to be that emerald green. It's going to work. And I just poured a ton of white and matte medium on top of it, to be honest, to be frank ocean with you. I wanted that stuff to blend and I wanted it to be lighter because it needs to have that dark edge to it. Because later I'm going to put that highlight on it and you're going to see why. So right here I'm playing with some white where it would go. But to be honest, I wasn't feeling it. So I immediately covered it all up. That was a swing and a miss, but it's worth doing, to be completely honest with you. Now I figured out my highlights. Now this is more of a tattoo technique. You know, I'm not a great acrylic painter, so I don't really get like blending a whole white highlight out. So I'm going to use dots. Kind of like some Finding Nemo type shit. Do some white around the top rims of the honeycombs, because if our light source was hidden from the top, that's where they'd be. Now that everything is lined out, now that we've got the highlights in, we've got everything blocked in, it's time to line it. This is my favorite part because you're going to see everything come to life. I'm using alcohol-based markers, and I went to Michael's Wrong move. You don't need to go to Michael's to get some crazy markers. You can literally use Sharpies, and that's what I prefer because these markers were really cool. Granted, they covered a little bit better than some of the Sharpies would have. But yeah, I'm just outlining everything, making sure it's really crisp. And to be honest, this was the funnest part of this entire painting because as I was lining everything out, I was like, damn, this isn't terrible. And maybe I should do more of these. But maybe you might be watching this and being like, man, you totally dropped the ball. This is terrible. I'm not going to argue with you. You got your opinion. But putting an outline on everything, giving those honeycombs the extra hole at the bottom, just to let that brown be like the darker mid-tone of the hole. That way you've got the surface that's that honeycomb color. I'm using a brown marker right now to just kind of stylize everything, line everything out, make it look really cool, or make it look the cool I want it to be. Now I'm using, I think the color is Sangria from an alcohol-based company, and I forget what it's called. But I'm lining everything out, doing it kind of like in a tattoo style. You know, lining the petals, kind of one of my favorite things in tattooing and in painting. That's my favorite part to do. And I don't want to go too overboard with this because I've only got one marker. So you got to do what you got to do. Here's where the Sharpie came in. I used that blue alcohol-based marker. That shit sucked. And then I was looking around, I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? I found a thick blue guy. 2 C's. I got that blue in the bag. So I busted that thing out. I put it to work. And man, did it make this stuff pop off the canvas. I wanted that blue literally to grab you from across the room because yellows and pinks, they're in the same family. So they're going to hold hands. They're not really going to scream at you. This blue is going to catch your eye. I'm stoked on that. You know, with color theory, you always want to use something that's in harmony and something that's in contrast to tell a cool story and to kind of catch your eye. But that's it. That's the painting. From A to B all the way to Z. That's it. And I had a blast with it. Yo, so that was it. This painting was a ton of fun to make. I added the Charlie Sheen around it. I think it came out really cool. I just had a good time making it. So I hope everybody enjoyed the narration and can take my process and just throw it in your mix and make something of it. Please take the narration with a grain of salt, as I am not super art educated. I do not have a background in acrylics. I'm just sharing what I did and why I chose to do it. And I hope it helps anybody out there watching this. I just came to the shop with 2 more canvases that I'm excited to lay down, and hopefully we'll have a few more time lapses out there for you soon. So thank you to everybody that watched, and I hope everybody has a good day. This was a blast to make. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.